Hi, this is part 2 of lesson 4.1, learning to write linear equations in slope-intercept form. So last time we were just covering the basics of getting it in this form, y equals mx plus b, where m was the slope, b was the y-intercept, and so sometimes we just were given these two things and we plug it in. Other times we had to find out what the m and the b were based on the graph or being able to count or looking at it. So today we're going to continue on with that, and we're just going to do one of these review examples. So this one, it says write the equation of the line. So we need two things for slope-intercept form. We need the slope and we need the y-intercept. So for this one, I need to find out the slope, which I know is negative because it's going downhill. And so from here, I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over 2. And so my m is going to be negative 8 over 2, or it's going to be negative 4. My b is right there at 1, so my b is equal to 1. So then I can write my y equals negative 4x plus 1. Alright, I'm going to skip this one and go straight down to what the new stuff is. So sometimes we're not given the slope at all, and we're not given a graph, but we can figure out what the slope is by calculating it. So the steps here are we need to calculate the slope, and then for this form we're going to use the slope and a point to find the y-intercept, and then we're going to finally write the equation of the line with the slope and the y-intercept. So let's take a look at what we have. So for part A, it says write an equation of the line that passes through the given points. All right. So for this first one, letter A, let me get down here. I have the points 10, 4 and 0, negative 1. So if I would put this on the graph just very quickly, it would be over somewhere 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be about 10, 4, and this would be 0, negative 1, right about here. So my line looks something like that. Okay? Now, you don't have to graph it like that, but just to give you an idea of what's going on here, if I would be able to graph it, that's about what it would look like. So there's a couple things I notice. First, it's going uphill. And another thing, I know what the y-intercept is. It's right here. Okay? Now, knowing this already, that it's going uphill, so it's going to be a positive slope, and I already know what the y-intercept is, we're going to do it as if we didn't know that. Okay? So, let's figure out how we do this. So, step 1 up here says to calculate the slope. So, we're going to go back to the slope formula, which if you don't remember, it was m was equal to the change in y's. So that means I'm going to take both my y's and subtract them. And then I'm going to take both my x's and subtract them. Now, which one is y2, which one is y1? It doesn't really matter. Maybe this is x1, y1. Maybe this one is x2, y2. Doesn't really matter, but you just need to pick one and go with it. So I'm going to find out what the slope is, which I'm expecting a positive number here. So I'm going to take my y2, which is negative 1 from right here, and I'm going to subtract this 4. So negative 1 minus another 4. So that looks like it's negative, which I'm not expecting that, but keep going here. I'm going to take this 0 and my 10, which are my x's, and I'll get 0 minus 10, so I'll get negative 1. It might be easier to do plus a negative 4, or you can just think of it as minus another 4, but I'll get a negative 5, and then I'll get a negative 10 on the bottom, which, because it's a negative over negative, I'll end up with positive 1 over 2, because 2 5s will fit into a 10. So that's what my slope is. I did get a positive number like I expected. Alright, so now I know what my y-intercept is, but if I didn't, I would write this. I know it's going to be y equals, I know it's going to be 1/2 x, and then I don't know what my b is, or at least I'm going to pretend like I don't know. So, because I don't know, I'm going to put plus b. Because if you don't know something, you can give it a name, like a letter. Now, that's where the b spot is, so that's why I'm naming it b. But, even though I don't know it now, I do know some other things. Up here, I have some points. And I have a couple I can choose from, and it doesn't really matter which one I choose. Now, because I get to choose, I'm going to pick the ones that look like they're easier to plug in. 0 and -1 look easier to plug in than 10 and 4. So, I'm going to plug this in for my x and for my y in this thing. So, instead of writing y, I'm going to write this -1 from up here, because that is a y in this equation. And instead of writing x, I'm going to write 0 in here. Okay, and now I can solve this thing for b, and it's actually done for me because I'm going to take this out of the parentheses now. -1 equals, well, 1/2 times 0, anything times 0 will get me 0. So I get 0 plus b, so my b is equal to -1, which I already knew that because I made that quick sketch. But if I didn't know that, I'd be able to follow this same procedure, and now I'm just going to put it all together. I'm using my 1/2 that I knew from earlier, x, and then now since I know what my b is, I'm just putting that right over here and writing -1 there. So my final equation is going to be y equals 1/2 x minus 1. So that means that equation contains both of these points right here. Okay, so going over to this one then, I have b equals 0, or I have part b, and I have 0, 8, and 5, -1. So I'll write down the slope formula, and I'm going to figure out what the slope is. So again, does not matter which one your x and your y's are, just pick one and stick with it. So I'll start with this 8, and I'm going to subtract my other y right here, but since that's a negative, I need to make sure I put a minus -1. And then because I picked this 8 first, I better pick this x over here, my 0 first, so 0 minus 5, and so I'll get 8 minus a -1, so that's going to be 8 plus 1, so I'll get 9 over 0 minus 5 is -5, which is -9 over 5. Alright, so, just like before, I know what my m is now. I know what my slope is, -9 over 5x. I don't know what my b is, so I'm going to put plus b. And now, just like before, I have a choice of which point I can make. Now, I could choose either one of these, but I'm going to choose the one that's going to be easier for me later. Now, if I choose this one, then I'll multiply this by 5, and actually the fraction goes away. But if I choose this one, then I'll get a 0 for x, and so this thing will go away completely, and I won't have to deal with it anymore. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to choose this 0, 8 for my x and y. So for my y, I'm going to put in that 8 equals -9 over 5. Instead of x, I'm going to put 0, and that's going to make my job a whole lot easier, just like before, because now I don't have to deal with it, and I just get 8 is equal to -9 over 5 times 0 is 0. I'm not even going to write it, and I get 8 equals b. Once I find out what my b is, I put it all together. I'm using my -9 over 5 from before, x plus 8. All right, I'm going to skip this one for now, and I'm going to go to this back side, because we have one little thing that we need to deal with, and it's this function form, which we've talked about before, but it's just a quick way to write what your x and your y are quickly, because this f of x is just a fancy way to write y. They are the same. Okay? The advantage of writing it like this, if I say f of 2 is equal to 5, then I know that this 2 is really my x, and that y is that 5 is really my y. So for this function, whatever it is, I know that one of the points is 2 comma 5 in there, and it's built into the equation. I don't have to write it down separately. So let's take a look at some quick things here. I'm probably not going to go through all of this, okay? But we have these steps here, which you can read through, and it says write an equation for the linear function f with the given values. So instead of giving you 2 points, it gives you 2 functions, which is really the same thing, because this f of 0, that's just a way of saying x equals 0 is one of the points, and then this y, 21, that's just a way of saying 0, comma 21. And then I have 4, comma 13. Now it's saying write an equation for the linear function. It's just like the ones on the front side here that I'm given 2 points. So the next step would be to find the slope between them and then plug it in to find what the b, the y-intercept, is. So that's the first step for these. So if they throw any of these at you, just quickly write down, instead of f of 3 equals negative 12, you just write 3 comma negative 12. And for this one, 0 comma 6. All right, so let's take a look at this last thing here. We have dog boarding. Okay, so a dog kennel boards dogs for $8 a day. The kennel will also groom a dog for $12. And it says we want to write an equation that gives the total cost in dollars of lodging a dog and having it groomed once before it comes home as a function of the number of days the dog is at the kennel. Okay, so really we have a set dollar amount for just bringing your dog there. And then if you want this extra service, then it's going to be more each time you do it. Okay, so we're having it groomed once before it comes home as a function of the number of days at the kennel. So here's what it's going to be. The part that changes is the part that's going to be the number in front of the x. So what is this number? Well, let's take a look at what we have. It says a dog kennel boards its dogs for $8 a day. Whenever you see words like a day or per hour or per mile or something like that, then that's a clue that it changes over time or over something else. Okay? Here, the more days I do it, the more it is. So this is the part that is in front of the x, where the x is the number of days. And then this $12 is just an extra thing that it doesn't change unless you get it groomed more than once, but why would you? So that is what the equation is going to be. Okay, so for part B, it says find the total cost if you take your dog to the kennel for 5 days. Since we have this equation now, all we're going to do is put this 5 days right where that x is, and then we can solve for what this y is. So I'm going to write y equals 8 times, we're there for 5 days, so I'm going to put 5 in there, plus 12, because we're assuming the dog's only groomed once during those 12 days. And then I get 8 times 5 is 40, plus 12. And so my y is going to be 52. And then 52 what? This is really important. Let's make sure we're answering the question. Find the total cost. So that's going to be $52. So make sure you put that on there.